Welcome back. You're watching The Capital Point, and joining me now in studio is David Kingo, Senior Procurement Associate at Cytonn Investment. Thank you so much for making time to be on The Capital Point. The Sacco, the cooperative space, is quite an interesting one in Kenya today, because the majority of Kenyans actually, everyone who works in an organization has put their money either in a chama or, a Sacco or a credit savings society. Just in your opinion today, what's the state of the Sacco and cooperatives industry?
So let's even to connect with the GDP, they contribute around 43% in terms of the informal contribution that might not be recorded anywhere. Because you, for example, matatu industry is all in Saccos, that for example, as individuals, we are all in chairmans that you can mention. So they're quite a big stake in the GDP contribution as a Saccos or chairman. Yes.
Wow, okay. So just tell us a little bit about the different types that exist today for, and they are within different spaces. I think one of the ones that Kenyans really know is in the tea space, which I'm told there's studies that has been done internationally about how that has continued to work or not work, depending on what side of the coin you're coming from. Just tell us a little bit about the different types of Saccos that are available today.
So the different types of Saccos are defined by the name and your objective. So for example, if you want to venture in real estate, definitely you would associate your naming of your Sacco with the real estate. And before you venture into it, because it's defined by the name, so you have to understand the market and what exactly you're going to put your funds in for what purpose. Then we have what matter to industry Saccos. These are formed and they are regulated by the government to ensure that we have a discipline in the transport industry as something that we are trying to see the government working on it. So they're just geared towards ensuring that we have a control and we have a group of vehicle owners and a group and umbrella that's called a Sacco that they're able to control as a sector and the way they do the business. Then we have investment chairmas or investment Saccos. These are people who come together as a group and agree to invest their funds in different avenues. Could be invest money market, could be in the banks, could be in shares. So defined, a Sacco or a group is defined by your objective and what you want to do. Yes.
Now, the majority of chamas today, well, maybe not the majority, but some of the chamas have grown to places where, we're seeing them have so many members, but they haven't transitioned into what would be the next step. First of all, are there benefits of transitioning just from a chama to a Sacco, and then maybe from a Sacco to an investment cooperative, etc.?
Yes, the big business, the big benefit when transform from a Sacco to a cooperative, because a cooperative is more regulated. A cooperative has more of specific objectives that I want to do. Then a cooperative would even have a board that steers their day-to-day running of the organization. Then a cooperative would as well have a CEO. So I mean, by the time you transit from a Sacco to a cooperative, you have enough funds to cushion that, and to have a minimum amount of capital that you need in your cooperative to ensure you move ahead. So it is better to be in a cooperative. Once a chama grows to an extent, then that is an objective to put in the cooperative, because the rules and the regulations that are there, then the investment per individual, of course, it has increased, and you need security of your funds. You need confidence in whatever a decision the cooperative is going into. So a cooperative will be more secure for people to engage in investment as a group. Yes.
What sort of corporate governance structures, do chamas need to start thinking of if they're thinking of growth, if they're thinking of, getting into spaces where, for instance, we've just had a conversation with Safaricom Investment Cooperative, which, hived off, from the Sacco. What type of governance structures? Because that's some of the biggest challenges that many of the chamas face today.
So I just mentioned for a group to be a group, number one, there are different dynamics that it's looking to. Number one, people must have common interest and maybe even age group, or maybe the same nature of business, the same nature of work. So you need a common factor when people are coming into group. That one does not amount to enough corporate governance. So, but when it transits into a cooperative, or you can still operate as a chama, but you have your own structures that ensures corporate governance. Number one, the key person will be a patron. This is someone who is an ex-official member or even official member. So who guides the organization or the chama into the strategic decisions. Then a chama can even come up with an investment committee. Apart from the executive committee, then you have a subset of the executive committee that's an investment committee, whereby you can employ in resources in terms of knowledge from an expert in the specific field that you want to venture. So as a chama, you bring on board someone specifically for advice in the investment subcommittee. Then you have other subcommittees that helps in terms of disciplinary actions, that helps in terms of ensuring that contributions are done as per agreed. Then you also involve the banking sector or even the investment sector, people who you're dealing with. Maybe you, for example, you invested in Cytonn, so you get a financial advisor who would help in your daily transactions and ensuring you start now doing things like financial reporting and moving away from transactions that are not recorded to recorded transactions. So those are the basics that we can employ in a chama to strengthen their operation in terms of corporate governance. Yes.
What are your thoughts about, SIC, Safaricom Investment Cooperative? It has recently been announced that they have joined the Ibuka program at the Nairobi Securities Exchange, which now means that, this could be the beginning of their journey to be a publicly listed cooperative. What are your thoughts around that?
So just to mention is that number one is to look at the customer base. How spread is it? Is it still Safaricom stuff? When you analyze the analytics of the customer base, if it's spread enough, then of course it's good, and it's an avenue, it's an eye opener for other cooperatives that have been behind there, not knowing their options to get in the NSE and maybe improve your share capacity and your core capital and investment options. So it's an eye opener to different other cooperatives that might be intending to go that way. Sure.
And what would you tell Kenyans who are, within the similar space, either as a chama, should they be looking in the same direction?
Yes, definitely they need to be looking in the same direction, but they should take time to strengthen their investment base, to have a strong asset base and liability side that is geared towards a strong financial plan. Then that particular way they can now venture into cooperatives and moving into listing. So then there is power in people coming together. And as we've seen, even the government says people should come into groups, you should come into groups that are funded. So because the government has seen an option and have seen ability to inject money through the economy when it comes to groups, that is Saccos and chamas, definitely. Yes.
You talked about the impact to GDP at 43%, mostly from the informal side, that may not necessarily be recorded.
Yes.
We today have about 23,000 registered Saccos in the country. And in terms of impact, what more can you tell us? Just, besides the GDP, which is quite big at 43%, what other impact do they have, and what benefits does a Sacco have, for Kenyans other than other modes of access to credit that they would
so number one,
otherwise have?
If you have around 23,000, then approximately each has employed 2 people. So close to, that is 50-something people that job creation is done. Then when you invest as an investment expert, is that there's what we call multiplier effect. So if I buy land or if I buy a motor vehicle, then that motor vehicle helps other people in their own way of living. So it has a multiplier effect when you invest. Around 3 or 4 people also benefit from the chama. So when you come together, create an investment, you build a building as a cooperative, people who want to do business will come and lease offices in your building. So they are able to access ease of business by the virtue that you're in a chama or you're in a cooperative. So the informal multiplier effect of chamas in terms of triggering other economic aspect is quite high. Then it can operate in the most informal sector of the economy. It can operate in villages. I've seen in Northeastern where women come together through assistance of the county government. They form a cooperative for growing watermelons. Then also chamas for rearing goats or rearing these beef cows or oxen. So in that aspect, cooperative are able to trigger the economy more than even other avenues that the government might use, because it exists at the informal point of the economy setup.
What do you think it will take to make sure that that particular industry grows? And because it's the nearest, most Kenyans would reach before they walk into a bank. What will it take to grow the industry?
So number one, you have to understand as a government the aspect of financial inclusion. As a group, the financial inclusion is still low. As an individual is still increasing, but a group setup is still low. So we need a lot of sensitization through the county government and setting cooperative ministries and departments in the county government that would connect with individuals who want to form into groups. So we also would ask through the commercial banks in Kenya whether they can have moral suasions to people come into group. Those who cannot collect enough deposit as individuals, if they can manage to collect enough deposit as a group, let them collect and invest. Investment firms like Cytonn, we need to set agents in those extreme areas where informal setups are. If you set a group, for example, in Turkana, or you set an agent in Turkana, pull people together, they're able to get an account with 500,000, invest in money market fund as a Cytonn product, earn interest percent at 12% per annum, then they're in business as a group and not an individual, because calling individuals to bring 500,000 would be an hectic, but pulling people together. So sensitization is quite important, which should be done through but the commercial banks, investment companies, and the county government, and as well the national government, because I understand they have representatives in all regions, in all areas that touch to the local management. Yes.
And what advice would you have for Kenyans who may not already be saving within a pool and have never maybe thought about it, but given the advantages that you've just talked about, what would you tell a Kenyan who maybe hasn't done it?
So just to mention that as alone, you can run fast when you're alone, but you cannot go far when you're alone. So people coming together and pooling resources. If you've contributed 10,000 out of 100,000, your stake remains as your capacity as an individual. You can access rights up to 10,000, for example. So it doesn't make you a lesser person or a lesser investor to come into group and invest. So then it opens inclusion, it opens opportunities for investments when you're coming together, because your financial ability is strengthened as a group. So as an individual, you may not go far, but as a group, you might command a lot in the investment sector and the financial sector, or awakening of your financial liberation.
All right. Thank you so much for giving us your insights and analysis into the state of Saccos and, of course, what it would take to move it to the next step. We've been speaking with David Kingo, Senior Procurement Associate at Cytonn Investment, and with that, we come to the end of the Capital Point, and I thank you so much for keeping us company and for engaging us on social media. Remember, the handle to follow is at Metropole TV KE. My name is Terry Ann Chebet. Until next Wednesday, have a great week.